recurring themes in these Trump videos. And if they have one overarching common thread, it is, see, we told you so. Speaking of never Trump, we said that the way that Trump was running in the primaries, Trump being Trump, let Trump be Trump. Trump is changing all the rules. They got to throw out the rule book when it comes to Trump. He's doing it his way. What did we say in Never Trump? We said it's not going to work in the general. I mean, you can do these kinds of things. You can throw out the rule book and substitute $2 billion of free media to capture 40% of the primary vote in a nominating process that rigs the process in favor of the front runner, Donald Trump. But when you get to the general campaign, it's not going to work because you're not going to have all that free media. It's going to be balanced. In fact, it's going to be turned against Trump because look what party's nomination he was running for. The Republican presidential nomination. And the media always turns against the Republican nominee once the conventions are over, once the general campaign gets started. And that's when the rule book has its revenge. That's when the rule book strikes back. That's when real politics comes back to the fore. The circus sideshow is over. And Donald Trump, you know, it worked for him in the primaries, but now it's the general campaign. And what do you know? The media has turned on him. He's not getting all that free media swamping everybody else. He's facing somebody with just as big a universal name recognition as he has. And Trump's campaign is going down for the third time. I mean, he may lose over 400 electoral votes. That's what we're looking at right now. This is the revenge of the rule book. Jim Garrity, echoing, well, not just me, I mean, echoing himself and all of us in Never Trump, who warned you people in the Trump on the Trump train. We warned you, and you still don't want to hear it, and you're going to blame and point the finger at everybody else except your own candidate, whose fault it will be, whether it's because he's just a moron or because he was deliberately trying to put Hillary Clinton in the White House, one way or the other, or probably a little bit of both. But this is where the rule book has its revenge. It turns out that some of the conventional wisdom about American politics still applies. Who'd have thunk it? Kind of reassuring, actually, that there's still some degree of rationality left in this country. It made you it's made you wonder. You know, both parties nominating the two respective most unpopular national politicians in the modern era, and just, you know, how does this happen? I mean, can't we do any better than Hillary Clinton and Donald bleeping Trump? How did it get to this point? Well, we know how we got to this point. Two cult of personality. Wasn't bad enough one major national party was taken over with that nonsense. Now it's taken over both. You know, as the primary season went on, Donald Trump's remarkable success led Republican politicians and media alike, and they really should have known better. Republican politicians, that is. The media, they knew what they were doing. But Republican politicians really should have known better. Led them to conclude that the old political rule book had been rewritten. Experienced television ads, retail campaigning, knowing what you're doing, were no longer necessary. Outlandish boasts and profanity led to Trump's rallies being broadcast live on cable news, and that was the only campaign tool he needed. Whee! Celebrity! Idolatry! Politics no longer being serious. the governance of the former American Republic being reduced to an episode of American Idol or Survivor. I'm going to vote Hillary off the island. Since the convention, however, Trump has been struggled mightily, suggesting that some of the old rules of American politics still very much apply. Oh no! Now what are Trumplicans going to do? Namely, and here we got a list. Number one, maybe television advertising is overrated, but it's not something a campaign can give up entirely. Here's a little factoid. Jill Stein, the Bolshevik Green Party candidate, has spent more on television advertising than Donald Trump. No crap. That should be embarrassing to you, Trump supporters. I mean, okay, well, maybe he doesn't have to run as many ads as crooked Hillary, but shouldn't he be running more ads than Jill Stein? For the past 2 months, Hillary Clinton's campaign and allied groups have aired $104 million worth of television ads. I mean, it's not like Hillary really needs to do a whole lot to frame Trump in the way that she wants to frame him, because he's doing a lot of that work for her, to himself. Trump-aligned outside groups have spent $12.4 million on ads, or about 1/8 of Hillary's total. And the Trump campaign has spent $0. One can argue over how valuable it is to spend money in July and August, but in the weeks since the Democrat convention, Mrs. Clinton's lead has boomed, both nationally and in key swing states. I mean, Trump is losing all the swing states. It's gotten so bad that even if now, and not all the traditional swing states are still swinging anymore. They're already in Hillary's pile. Colorado, Virginia, North Carolina, average of a 14-point Hillary lead. They're already in her pile. They're not even swing states anymore. So if you take the remaining swing states and say, well, what if Trump ran the table on those? Hillary would still win. Which is why I say that Trump's campaign is going down for the third time, and his supporters can't accept it. I mean, Dana Perino, is it Perino? Perino. Dana Perino, one of the few non-Kool-Aid drinkers at Trump News, aka Fox News. I mean, she had a Trump surrogate on the program. It was on a panel discussion. I forget which show it was. Doesn't really matter. And this Trump surrogate, she pointed out that, or he was pointing out that, well, look at the size of Trump's rallies and look at the number of Facebook and Twitter followers he has, pointing to these things as evidence that Trump is running away with the election. And she says, well, what about the polls? And he said, what about him? And she said, well, he's losing. Hillary Clinton is leading by large and growing margins in all of them. And he said, says who? And she said, the polls. And the guy just sat there, humming, because he couldn't answer it. Now, it's funny, we talked about this in a video yesterday, that remember back in the primaries when Trump was leading the polls, and he couldn't mention that enough. I'm leading in the polls. By the way, I'm leading in the polls. Did you know I'm leading in the polls? He doesn't talk about the polls anymore. All he talks about is how the polls are all rigged. It's all a huge anti-Trump conspiracy. And this even goes beyond Trump. I mean, remember back in 2012 when we didn't want to believe that Barack Obama was going to win over Mitt Romney? But 538.com, Nate Silver, he said, hey, Obama's going to win. It's not going to be by much in the popular vote. But Obama is leading in these states. He's going to be over 300 votes in the Electoral College. And we didn't want to hear it. We didn't want to believe it. And then that's exactly what happened. And Dana Perino said the same thing. She pointed this out. She sent out a tweet storm, a Twitter storm today, a Twitter thread, in which she pointed out, I'm not going to lie to you. And no, the polls aren't all fixed. Are they biased? Oh, dang right they are. They can be biased. Sure, the media uses psyops via the polls every presidential election cycle, every election cycle. That's how they mold and influence the electorate, create the bandwagon effect, or try to, for the Democrat candidate. But if the margins are as big as they are now, and they are all pretty much saying the same thing and moving in the same direction, I mean, the thing you have to understand with polls is that each poll is a snapshot. That's why you have to look at all of the polls and see what they're all doing. Are they all saying the same thing, or are they just kind of all over the place? So creating a situation, well, we don't really know. But if they're all saying the same thing and trending in the same direction, that's not what you got to look at. Other than the weekend before the election, you got to look at the trends. And the trends have Hillary Clinton leading by high single digits, sometimes double digits. And they're all going in her direction. I mean, that's the reality. You know, that's one of the things where I've never been in this position before where I didn't have a dog in the fight. I didn't have a horse in the race. I didn't have a candidate that was competitive. So it's easier to look at this objectively, you know, once you don't have an emotional investment in it, like Trump supporters do, for example. And they're the ones going out there saying that, oh, well, it's polls are all fixed, it's all conspiracy, Trump's really ahead. No, he's not. No, he's not. Hillary Clinton is ahead and pulling away. And she wouldn't be if Trump hadn't been the Republican nominee, but that's what Trump supporters wanted, and that's what you got. And for people, like I keep saying, for people who say that it's absolutely imperative we stop Hillary Clinton, why did you nominate Donald Trump? I'll say it again. All the hypothetical general election mashups showed Trump as the weakest general election candidate. This is not a surprise. We saw this coming in Never Trump. That's why we didn't want Trump, among other reasons. And there are quite a few. Well, just go back down the playlist on the Heartstarver radio channel, YouTube.com. So that's the reality. And Dana Perino said, I'm not going to lie to you. We should have learned the lesson last time. The polls aren't necessarily wrong. I mean, polling bias can move the needle, you know, a few points in the Democrat direction. But when Hillary Clinton is leading by an average of 8 percentage points, that's more than just polling bias. And that's what you've got to understand. And you also have to understand that your candidate is contributing to the problem with his stupidity and his Trump being Trump and his bombast and his buffoonery. Trump being Trump is what is sinking his campaign. You can't pull that crap in the general. And now you're finding out the rule book is having its revenge. So again, one can argue over how valuable it is to spend money in July and August, but in the weeks since the Democrat convention, Mrs. Clinton's lead has boomed both nationally and in key swing states, and the relentless pro-Clinton and anti-Trump messages on American TV screens are surely a factor. Trump's first general election television ads will hit the air Friday, and it's like a few 100,000. It ought to be an insult to Trump supporters that a few 100,000. I mean, I think 270 grand is the extent of it. 270 grand versus 104 million. Now, Now, sure, people will have tuned it out, you know, I mean, given the short attention span of the current American culture, they may have already tuned it out, but the point of these ads is it's a subliminal thing. If you keep hearing Hillary good, Trump bad constantly while you're going to you can even hear it through the bathroom door when you go down to, or when you go to get a sandwich or a frosty beverage from the fridge, and you just hear it in the background. You don't necessarily have to pay rapt attention to it, but it seeps into your subconscious. That's the purpose of advertising. I mean, basically, the only chance, even theoretically, even hypothetically, statistically, that Trump has is the debates. And his shtick ain't going to play there either. Trust me. Number 2, it helps to have a lot of campaign offices in states you need to win. You need a ground game. I mean, if Trump hadn't been able to run out the clock in the GOP primaries, he was going to lose the GOP presidential nomination to Ted Cruz. Why? Because Ted Cruz had a ground game and Trump didn't. And if you think that was going to cost him in the GOP primaries, what do you think it's going to do to him nationwide in the general election? You need a ground game. You can't just wing it. You can't count on the free media. I mean, there's a reason why things are done in a certain way and always have been, because it works. How much of Trump's slump in the swing states reflects weak organization in those states? If you live in a swing state, has a friend, neighbor, or local resident knocked on your door making the pitch for the Republican nominee? Are Trump staffers gathering volunteers and staying in touch, building up supporter lists, preparing for absentee ballot requests, prepping for the early voting that begins in October for most states? Given the news reports, it seems highly doubtful that you could answer either of those questions in the affirmative, although I have to point out that given the demeanor of every Trump supporter that I've ever met, I don't think those are the kind of people you want coming and knocking on your door. I mean, as soon as I don't generally open the door. If I look outside and I see someone who is rung the doorbell or knocked on the door and I don't recognize them, I don't open it up. Generally speaking, that's just my general policy. But if I saw they had a Trump button, I definitely wouldn't open up. And you know why? Because if I did, number one, I don't want to hear the spiel because I don't support Trump. I'm not going to support Trump. I can't be talked into supporting Trump. But when I told them, well, thanks, I appreciate your time, but I'm not going to vote for Donald Trump, and please don't try to talk me into it because you will fail, then they would get pissed off and start yelling and screaming and cussing at me in all likelihood, or maybe even throw a punch at me. I don't think that will be outside the realm of possibility. I'm not going to outright predict it, but it wouldn't surprise me. And so the general demeanor, the cultist, Kool-Aid swilling zombie demeanor of Trump supporters is not something you want to send door to door. You're going to alienate more people than you recruit. So maybe that's not a bad thing for Trump. But we're talking just in terms of how election campaigns are run and won. I mean, maybe they could get polite people. I don't know. It's possible. But they're not doing it in swing states. I don't live in a swing state, so I don't really encounter this sort of thing in presidential election years. This is where things stand in Ohio, by the way, according to the Dayton Daily News, mydaytondailynews.com. Quote, the Clinton campaign has about 200 paid staff, a Columbus headquarters, and 19 local offices that it began opening July the 6th. The Trump campaign will not say how many paid staff it has, other than to announce the names of 5 senior staff, and it had just one office, as Columbus headquarters, until Friday when the campaign announced it had opened 15 organizing offices across the state. Close quote. In Florida, Hillary has 15 offices open already. The Miami Herald reported that Trump so far has a headquarters in Sarasota, though the campaign plans to open 2 dozen more offices in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Mail voting for the general election starts in early October. Day late and a dollar short. In Pennsylvania, as of late July, the Hillary campaign had 300 staffers on the ground. The Trump campaign and the RNC combined had about 100, which means the RNC had about 100 because the Trump campaign, we don't need a ground game. Remember that guy, Trump, or that senior Trump campaign official said that last week. That was a verbatim quote. We don't need a ground campaign. So that 100 that's on the ground, that's all the RNC. No doubt. It seems safe to assume that Trump's organizational deficiencies have contributed to his slide in swing state polls. Speaking of which, what did I just spend several minutes on earlier in this video? Number 3, talking about the polls is a double-edged sword. Remember when a large chunk of every Trump speech included him reciting the numbers from every poll he was leading? He doesn't do that anymore. The jump on my bandwagon, I'm a winner message runs aground when the candidate is no longer winning. You know, loser. To most campaigns, polling is a tool for winning the election, not incontrovertible evidence of vindication or an inherent argument in favor of the candidate. Trump's, of course, is not like most campaigns, and that's not the good thing that Trump's supporters thought it was. They just still won't admit it. And he chose to hype his poll numbers ad nauseum during the primaries. Vote for me, I'm ahead in the polls. The more people that vote for him, the more ahead in the polls he is. Vote for me, I'm ahead in the polls. He's not ahead in the polls anymore. Yeah, so Trump supporters cite that. When I point that out on Facebook, on my blog, on Twitter, or wherever, on this YouTube channel, Hard Starboard Radio, at youtube.com/HardStarboardRadio. Listen, share, and subscribe. Learn it, live it, love it. It's the best thing going today. And they say that they claim that that's proof that I want Hillary to win. I don't want Hillary to win. I don't want Trump to win. I don't want either of these people to be president. But one of them's going to be, and it's looking pretty strongly that that's going to be Hillary Clinton. And the reason why is because Donald Trump was nominated as the Republican presidential nominee. This is a see I told you so, not a ready for Hillary deal. We told you, we warned you, we told you, Trump supporters, that this is what was going to happen. Ted Cruz came right out and said it late in the GOP primaries. If Donald Trump is the GOP nominee, Hillary Clinton is going to win by double digits. It's not too far off of that. And it will be a landslide in the Electoral College. It didn't have to be this way, but you Trump supporters made it inevitable. We were trying to stop Hillary by not nominating Trump. Not nominating the weakest candidate in the field. You didn't want to listen. You wouldn't have any of it. And you'll never admit the lesson that if assuming you even do learn that lesson, you'll never admit it. Despite our greatest and Herculean efforts. At the time, this may have worked to his advantage, bragging about leading the primary polls, since he was the unquestioned frontrunner and stood to benefit from encouraging a bandwagon effect. But now that he's reached the general election and is faltering, Trump may be learning that bandwagon effects can cut both ways. The public, by now accustomed to his poll recitation routine, has come to expect it, which makes its sudden absence all the more conspicuous. Number 4, message testing. Campaigns deserve the mockery they get when they poll test and focus group every last press release, ad, utterance, line in a candidate's stump speech, slurp, burp, and gurgle lest they offend someone. But Trump is demonstrating the limits of trusting his gut and winging it every time he's in front of a microphone. In other words, you don't have to go to extremes. Just say what you believe in, say the truth, and let the chips fall where they may, but you don't have to be a dick at the same time. You don't have to be aggravating, you don't have to be bombastic, you don't have to be narcissistic. You know, so I mean, those are the two extremes. Poll test and focus group everything versus winging it. Isn't there a happy medium in there somewhere? Huh? Candidates almost always think that their message is working and that stump speeches are indicators of broad appeal. They see people smiling, nodding, and applauding all day long. But of course the audiences applaud. They came to see the candidate. This is why this notion of, well, look at the size of Trump's rallies. Romney had bigger rallies than Trump. John McCain had bigger rallies than Romney, for crying out loud. He drew 60,000 people to a rally in Florida back in 2008. How'd that turn out? I mean, in Florida, how many people vote in Florida? 9, 10 million? So McCain had 60,000 people at a rally. What's the percentage? What's 10 million divided by 60,000? That's less. That's like 0.5%. 0.5% of the entire electorate. Rallies are not indicative of anything. It's just like when candidates talk about, or candidate supporters talk about how they've seen so many of their candidates' yard signs and hardly any for the other candidate. So, that's not indicative of anything. That's wishful thinking. That's seeing something that looks positive and projecting it ridiculously. Rally size, Facebook followers, Twitter followers, that's not indicative of anything. You want something that is indicative? The polls. And more specifically, their direction and the size of the margin. I mean, if it were neck and neck right now, then you know what we'd be talking about? What we'd be saying is neck and neck. And the Trump supporter mantra that, they gotta stop Hillary, and if Hillary wins, we are holding you responsible and never Trump. That might carry a bit more oomph to it. Carries none now because Trump is so far behind. But a self-selected sample of the candidate's most motivated supporters cannot provide anyone an accurate idea of his message's effectiveness with the public at large, other than polls. Which is why. And then polls are imperfect, and they can be biased, and they can be off. But not all of them is the point. That's why you don't look at one individual poll. You got to look at all of them put together. Perhaps new Trump pollster Kellyanne Conway's role in the campaign will help. But on the other hand, candidate Trump wasn't all that different under Paul Manafort's management from what he was under Corey Lewandowski's. Then all reports indicate that he engineered this yesterday morning's campaign shakeup with an eye toward getting back to what seemed so successful in the first place, letting Trump be Trump, which is what is sinking his campaign. And there really isn't any way out of it for him. Letting Trump be Trump is a disaster. And he's not capable of being a conventional, responsible candidate, serious candidate. So, that's why Trump's not going to win. I can sit here right now, August 18th, 2016, 2.5 months from Election Day, and tell you Trump's not going to win. I mean, short of Hillary Clinton dropping dead or having a massive stroke or otherwise being completely incapacitated and taken out of the running. And I'm not even sure how things would work out in that instance. Or a massive terrorist attack, and I'm talking at least 9/11 magnitude. In the absence of something like that, there's no way Trump can win. There's no way, because his usual shtick is what is sinking him, and if he tried to be a normal candidate, he's not capable of pulling it off. If he won't change what he's been doing, because he can't, then the question remains, how likely is it that the coming months will show dramatically different results? Here's a clue. 0%.